Hey, what is up everyone? So Season 16 just released, and in this video I want to go over one of the big new features of this season, which is a new voyage for the Reaper's Bones called the Search for Ancient Secrets. So this voyage is pretty interesting because it's the first ever voyage that the Reaper's Bones has ever gone, as well as it's supposed to be like a PvP type voyage, so it's basically unlike all the other voyages in the game, which obviously have PvP as a component to it. This is more focused on encouraging PvP. I'll talk later on in the video whether or not I think what they did to try to accomplish that is a good thing or not. But for this video, what I want to focus on is first, what is this voyage? Then, how do you actually complete the voyage? And then just go over my thoughts on the voyage as a whole. So obviously, since it's the first day, I haven't really got to spend too much time playing with it, and obviously I'll have more final opinions towards the end of the season once I've gotten to pre-play it a handful of times. So this voyage continues the story that was started with Season 13 with the skeleton camps and what the Burning Blade was doing with those constellation temples. And now with that knowledge, Flamer has his sights on this new Ancient Skulls of the Banished. So this is basically the new type of treasure item, and I feel like it's going to have lots of comparisons to the Skull of Siren Song because of how kind of similar some of this is in terms of like what they're doing with both of these voyages. But unlike the Skull of Siren Song, this skull that you get at the end of the voyage doesn't do anything. It's just a simple skull that you sell. So honestly, in terms of voyages, this voyage is pretty easy to complete and can be done pretty quickly once you know what you're doing. So the way to start off is obviously you go to your quest table on your ship. You can either sail to the island that it tells you to go to, or you can just dive to it. I would recommend just diving to it because, if you don't really want to sail, there's no real reason to sail all the way over there. So that's what I did. I dived over to the island, and for this voyage, you're only spending time on one island, which is kind of nice. As someone who's not the biggest fan of doing voyages for a lot of things, it's nice to have a voyage where it all kind of takes place on one island and you're not spending a bunch of time sailing to different islands to complete the voyage. So that is one plus for this. The hard part with this voyage though, and the thing that you need to keep in mind is once you start the voyage, a Reaper's Mark flag will automatically be raised on your ship. So this means you'll be identified on the map even if you're not a Reaper's Bones emissary. This I think is going to push a lot of players away from this voyage. However, I would recommend you still give it a try. And for those wondering, upon completing the voyage, the Reaper's Mark will be lowered on your ship. So in starting out, you'll get your quest parchment that will tell you where on the island to go find the Reaper Scout Parrot. And then wherever that Reaper Scout Parrot is, you'll see kind of like this buried chest glowing from the ground right near the Reaper Scout. So all you have to do is go and dig that up, and then you'll get a special type of Reaper chest that you can open up, and then it will spawn some skeleton allies to help you with the rest of the voyage. Once you retrieve your crew of Reaper skeletons to aid you on the voyage, what you're going to do next is you're basically going to get another parchment in your quest inventory, and that will show you 3 locations of where these little temple mechanisms are across the island. You won't really be able to see them when you're there. Basically what you have to do is you have to go to where you think it is based off the pictures that you see, and then once you get there, the Reaper skeletons start digging up the mechanisms there, and then you can start obviously helping them dig. Now, either while you're digging or as you're trying to use the mechanism, you're going to have waves of ancient phantoms coming to attack you. Now, keep in mind the waves will keep going until you finish raising the mechanism. So what I would recommend doing for this is you'll have a big group of the phantoms when they spawn in each wave. I would recommend taking out a few of them, but don't take out all of them. Leave a few of them so that your skeleton allies can take them out for you, and while they are taking those ones out, you go ahead and keep raising that mechanism. The faster you raise it, the less waves you have to do. This is something that they don't really make clear in the instructions, so I wanted to make it clear in this video because I spent a little while on that first mechanism thinking that, oh, I just had to keep defeating waves and then eventually they would stop. But they don't stop, they just keep coming at you until the mechanism is fully raised. So keep that in mind, and it doesn't seem like your skeleton allies will help you raise it, so it's really upon you to raise it yourself. So basically you're just going to do that and repeat 3 times on the island, and it's pretty easy to find where they're at. I don't think the pictures are too helpful, but it tells you in little text that says either like the North Hill or the East Hill or whatever, and you basically just kind of run around that area until you see the skeletons start digging up something. At each of these mechanisms, though, you'll also get a special chest that is for the Reaper's Bones. It's one of the new types of treasure that was added with this season. So you'll want to make sure that you keep an eye out for that. One of the skeletons will dig that up for you, and you can take that back to your ship, or you can wait till the end and collect everything at once. So once you finish raising all 3 of the mechanisms, you'll see this beacon light up in the sky. For me, it was at the center of the island, and then you can head up to there, and again, the ancient skeletons will start digging in a spot, and you can help them dig. But unlike the other ones where you were getting attacked while you were trying to raise the mechanism, this one instead, the ancient phantoms are going to attack you while you're trying to dig it up. So I think the same strategy applies for this. You want to take out, the big group of phantoms at once, and then leave a couple for the other skeletons to take out while you keep digging. This is similar to how the other ones worked, where they will just keep attacking you. There's no certain amount of waves that will happen. It just will keep going until you finish digging up that sarcophagus. Once you've finished digging it up, it will open up the sarcophagus, and you'll see the ancient skeletons sitting in there, and you can take the banished skull from them. Once you take the banished skull out of the sarcophagus, the voyage is over, your Reaper's Mark flag will be lowered, and then you'll be able to go and sell your treasure. Now, the other thing with this voyage is the treasure can only be sold at Reaper's hideout. So you can't take that banished skull to an outpost or anything like that. It's going to have to go to Reaper's hideout, which I think is another thing that's going to keep a lot of players from enjoying this voyage. So that's how you complete the voyage. Now we'll get into more of my thoughts on this voyage specifically. I actually think this voyage is pretty fun, but in my opinion, the limiting factors such as only being able to sell Reaper's hideout, as well as having multiple markers on you at all times, not even including if you put on an emissary, such as the Reaper's Mark or the big sky beacon and all that stuff. It seems like a lot of it's trying to get other players' attention, which is kind of the point of this, is that they want to encourage PvP, but it's a weird feeling where this is very much a PvE activity, and you're kind of having to rely on other players showing up to do this. Now, for those wondering, I did capture what the amount you earn for each of these treasure items are, and I decided to do it without an emissary just because I wanted to see what the base value of these treasures were. So when I did it, when I sold the Skull at the Banish, it sold for 12,500, so not too bad there. I think you could do a little bit better with some skulls, but this is going to be one of the things where it's more of a thing that you want to steal rather than maybe complete. So that's how much the main skull gets you. Now, those other chests that I told you about that you get from raising the mechanism, which is you get 3 of them, that got me about 4,000 gold there, so that one's okay. You get about 4,000 times 3, so about 12,000 for those 3 chests. And then also when you get to where the final sarcophagus is, you'll get another type of chest that's similar, but it's like gold and stuff. So it's a little bit more valuable, and it'll get you about 5,600. That's roughly what I had gotten for that. So you do make a decent amount of money from this, and it took me about, I would say, 25 to 30 minutes to complete this voyage. Wasn't too long to do. So in terms of the amount of money you're making from this, especially if you put a Reaper emissary on, you'll do pretty good. The problem with this is, if it was just, that voyage by itself with the gold amount and how much time you're spending doing this, it actually is a really great, return on your money. The problem that I see with this is you have to factor in other players. Now, technically every voyage will have this issue. You have to factor in other players to attack you, and some voyages are more at risk to do that than others. I would say the Legend of the Veil obviously is more at risk for someone to attack you than, say, doing a regular gold hoarder voyage. But this voyage in particular has so many things that are trying to get other players to attack you, and especially for this probably first couple weeks to a month, you are going to be getting attacked anytime you do this voyage. Now, maybe you're into that, maybe you really like doing these voyages and then, having to defend your treasure. I think it's going to push a lot of people away. I think it's a weird choice, in my opinion, to make this a Reaper's Bones voyage. I get the connection, obviously, and I get how it connects in the story and all that stuff. But in terms of how the community and players view Reaper's Bones as a PvP-centric faction, this does not fit into it in my mind. Even with the stuff that they're doing, you're still doing a PvE activity. And if you really think about it, Reapers aren't doing these type of voyages. Reapers are stealing this voyage from someone else. Now, one thing, I'll be honest, I didn't check and I forgot to, but I do believe that the Banished Skull does show an icon on the map. It doesn't have a beacon like the Reaper's chest, but I think it has a map marker on it, similar to how the Reaper's chest and other stuff have a marker on the map. This, when I was testing it, slipped my mind and I didn't check the map to see if that was true. I don't remember if it is or not, but I just remember hearing people talk about that before. So keep that in mind. Even though your Reaper's Mark flag is gone, it might still show up on the map. Which gets into another point. So if that is true, that there's a marker on the map whenever you have the skull, I think it actually hurt PvP in some ways. Because as someone like myself, that's like more of like a sneaky player that wants to steal and that kind of stuff and tuck and everything, I would much rather do something where, you know, if I know someone's doing this voyage, I would rather go and tuck on their ship and try to steal that skull. But since they can track you with the skull, that kind of playstyle is not very advantageous to do. It's better to go and steal something else and steal from someone else instead of trying to steal from here. Because what you would really want to do is, you know, take the skull, maybe take out the crew, put it on the rowboat if they have a rowboat, and then try to sail off. But because there's the marker on it, they could just, you know, follow you down. Obviously, your rowboat's not going to go faster than a ship. So obviously that's very specific to a certain type of playstyle, but I think the broader point is some of these things that they're doing actually discourage PvP rather than encourage it. I think what you're going to see is a lot of players that just go in and do this voyage for the first month to try to get their commendations or whatever cosmetic rewards are tied to it unlocked and finished, rather than keep playing it for the long term. Even though this is actually a good voyage, and I want to make that clear. So I think there's clear connections that you can see with the Skull of Siren Song, and this almost being like an evolution of the Skull of Siren Song. Unlike that voyage, this one's actually fun to do even if there's no PvP component in it. But the problem for me is, most players, especially solo players like myself, even if you're good at PvP, you don't typically want to be marked on the map or have other stuff. I think having the Reaper's Mark plus the map marker and the sky beacon, all of those things combined, is just a little bit overkill in terms of making this a PvP voyage. I think it might have been a little bit better if you just had maybe the beacon at the end and then the banished skull marked, even though I just talked about why I don't like that skull being marked. The Reaper's Mark flag, though, at the beginning really hurts anyone that's a solo player or someone that maybe just doesn't really like PvP that much in terms of doing this voyage, because you spend so much time at the beginning of the voyage running around the island, raising these mechanisms and stuff, that you're not spending time looking around to see if anyone's coming to attack your ship. But once you get to the end part where you have the sky beacon in the sky and then you get the skull, I could see that being okay for, alerting other players that you have something valuable. That makes a little bit more sense to me. It's kind of similar to the Legend of the Veil in that sense, where it's like the first two parts of the voyage there, you have no idea if the person's doing it unless you see them having like an emissary flag on or you recognize the type of activity they're doing. But there's nothing on the map that's marking them. There's no like sky beacon or anything yet. It's not until you get to the third part where you have the big ship battle with all the different forts in there and the big tornado cloud that oh, someone's doing a Legend of the Veil over there. Let's go steal it. So I think they could have done something similar to this, make it so that it's only until you get to the final part that it starts like alerting people that there's, something happening over in that part of the region. And by the time someone saw that and started sailing over there, they'd probably get to a player by the time that they had finished the voyage, and they could, that would be more of an interesting battle. Because if you really want to encourage PvP, you don't really want it to be that someone's just distracted on the island and then they get their ship obliterated and the person just goes on there and grabs his skull. That's not really an interesting battle, in my opinion. So I think there's going to be a lot of debate about this voyage. I think it's good. I think it's fun to do, actually, as someone that doesn't really like doing too many voyages that often in the game. This one's actually pretty fun to do, even if it's a little bit cumbersome to try to do solo. I think, obviously, if you're in a duo or any crew size bigger than solo, this voyage would be a lot easier to do. It's not very solo player friendly. Other than that, it's pretty fun, and I recommend all of you to go out and try it for the season. Obviously, this is the big piece of content that you're getting for the season, so might as well try it. And I will say it's pretty cool to have skeleton allies. It does make me feel more part of like that Reaper's Bones faction and everything like that. So that's everything you need to know about the Search for Ancient Secrets Voyage. Let me know in the comments below if you've tried it and what you thought about it, or do you have any concerns like I had mentioned in this video. I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts in the comments below, but if you enjoyed this video, it'd be great if you liked and subscribed. And until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all later. Bye y'all.